News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.
Okay, so you know how we do these deep dives, right? We take what you send us and we really get into it, you know?
Yeah, totally. We sort of bypass all the noise and get right to what matters.
Exactly. And this time, what you sent us, huge, really huge. It's about these massive protests that happened just yesterday, April 5th, 2025, all aimed at President Trump and Elon Musk, both here and all over the world. Based on that article you shared with us from April 6th.
Yeah, no kidding. The thing that jumped out at me right away, even before getting into the details, was just how widespread this thing was. We're talking millions of people, all 50 states, and then big protests in places like London and Paris, too. It's like a gut reaction, you know? Something big is happening.
Yeah, and it wasn't just random people here and there either. This was organized, really organized. A pro-democracy group calling themselves, get this, hands off, over 1,400 protests. Think about trying to plan that. They're hitting everything, state capitals, even the Social Security offices. And their big message, they're calling it a billionaire power grab. So what does that even mean? What are they actually worried about?
Well, it's like this billionaire power grab idea is connecting a bunch of different fears, right? You've seen the flyers and stuff. They're worried about democracy being messed with, jobs disappearing, people snooping into their lives, and basic services falling apart. It's like they think the government is only working for the super rich and everyone else is getting screwed over. And
the numbers are pretty wild. Almost 600,000 people signed up for these things. That's not nothing, you know? Plus, it's not just one group doing this. You've got Indivisible in the mix, but also civil rights groups, veterans, women's groups, unions, LGBTQ folks. That's a pretty diverse crowd, all under one banner. What does that tell you when you see that happening?
Right. It's like these groups usually focus on their own thing, which is all important, but now they're together. So there's this shared worry, bigger than their individual issues. Could be about democracy going downhill or people not having a fair shot or certain groups losing their rights. This kind of team up can be really powerful, showing everyone's unhappy. But it also makes you wonder, how do they actually get stuff done with so many different goals?
Well, the article is very clear on what they want. 3 big things. 1, no more billionaire takeover, which they see as corruption in the Trump administration. 2, stop cutting funds to programs like Medicaid and Social Security. And 3, no more attacking immigrants, trans people, and other communities. So it's they're laying out exactly what they see as the problem.
Yeah, they're not messing around. These 3 demands, they're not just complaining. They're saying this is what needs to change. And it hits those big anxieties we talked about, corruption, people needing help, and vulnerable groups being targeted. Saying stop cutting funds fits right into that billionaire power grab idea, right? They think the cuts are meant to help the rich while hurting everyone else.
And some of the stuff people were saying at the protest is pretty intense. The article mentions Representative Janie Raskin in D.C., comparing things to Mussolini and Hoover, in front of thousands at the Washington Monument. That's some serious talk.
Yeah.
What do you make of that, using those kinds of historical comparisons?
Oh, yeah, that's meant to get people fired up, for sure. This is a turning point in history. Things are going bad, really bad. When you bring up guys like Mussolini and Hoover, you're tapping into those deep fears people have about dictators and economic collapse. Raskin's basically saying we're headed down a dangerous path, and he's trying to get people to join the fight.
And then you have Representative Ilhan Omar talking about fighting for a country that's fair and cares for its people. It's interesting to see these elected officials right there in the thick of it. What do you think that says about things right now?
When you see people like Raskin and Omar out there, it gives the protests more weight. People pay attention. It means some folks in the government are hearing these concerns too. Having them speak up gives the protesters a bigger platform and maybe shows that some lawmakers are ready to push back against what's going on.
Right. And there was also Representative Maxwell Frost pushing people to keep protesting, but also to think about things like changing laws. He even talked about, get this, an insidious rise of authoritarianism driven by, quote, corrupt billionaires and mega corporations. Whoa! That's a pretty direct accusation.
And no kidding. It's like he's saying the system is rigged and democracy is under threat. That deep distrust, the fear that basic freedoms are being chipped away, that's what's driving this. And when he links corrupt billionaires to authoritarianism, it totally backs up that billionaire power grab idea that's at the heart of all this.
And it wasn't just D.C., right? Huge marches in L.A., people talking about education, about resisting. And this whole thing about the administration wanting to cut spending, like no matter what, seems to be a big part of it, especially with all these reports of federal workers getting laid off and agencies like Social Security and USAID getting messed with.
Absolutely. It's like the protesters are saying, hey, they're cutting services, and we see it happening. When they talk about USA, which does a lot of good around the world, and Musk is saying he wants to, quote, put it in the wood chipper, that's a pretty powerful image, right? Like they're destroying something important.
And it's not just stuff here at home either. They're talking about cutting foreign aid and even putting people in charge of election security on leave. That raises some serious questions about what this administration is doing, both here and in the world. It's like they're turning their back on what America used to stand for.
It's bigger than just individual policies, right? This looks like a whole shift in thinking, like government should be small, and who cares about other countries? This seems to be the big idea driving things, and it's definitely making a lot of people angry.
And the Social Security thing, that's scary, especially with so many people depending on it. All this talk about problems inside the agency, people losing their jobs there. It's no wonder people are demanding they keep the funding for it.
No kidding. Social Security is like the safety net for so many Americans. Any threat to it, like cutting its budget or making it hard to run, is going to make people freak out, especially people who rely on those checks every month.
And then there's immigration. They're saying ICE is under pressure to arrest more people, even talking about mass deportations. They even mentioned someone getting deported by mistake. This is exactly what the protesters are talking about when they say stop attacking immigrants.
Yeah, how immigrants are being treated and the worries about trans people and other groups losing their rights. It shows this isn't just about money and jobs. It's about social and cultural stuff too, and it's getting really divisive.
Remember what Representative Frost said about how immigrants aren't stealing jobs, the jobs are being moved overseas, and they're talking about education, climate change, gun violence. It's like everything's on the table here.
Exactly. This isn't just about one thing. They're all united against the administration, but their reasons are all over the place. Some worry about rich versus poor, some about social justice, some about the environment. It's a whole mix.
Then there's this part about Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian refugee who had his green card taken away because he was protesting at Columbia University. That's a whole other level of messed up. It makes you wonder, how far does free speech actually go, especially when you're protesting the government?
Yeah, this Khalil thing is really tricky. It's about finding that balance between keeping the country safe and making sure people can speak their minds and protest without getting punished or kicked out of the country. This could have a huge impact on free speech going forward.
And the hands-off folks, they're saying it's not just about money, it's about power. They think the administration is going after anyone who isn't in the top 1%, whether they're veterans or trans people. It's like they see a threat everywhere.
Right. Their message is basically, the government is working for the elite and everyone else is a target. That's powerful stuff, and it's clearly hitting home with a lot of people who feel like they're being left behind or attacked.
The article does mention that most of the protests were peaceful, but there was that incident in Indiana with a guy and a gun. That could have gotten really bad. It's kind of scary. Shows how tense things are, how people feel so strongly on both sides.
Yeah, that just shows you how divided things are. Most people were peaceful, using their right to protest, but when you have these huge gatherings, there's always a chance something could go wrong. The emotions are just too high.
And we can't forget the labor unions. They're really mad about how the administration is treating federal workers, especially ending collective bargaining rights for a lot of them. They're not just protesting, they're taking legal action too.
Unions are a big deal here. They've always fought for workers, and they know how to organize. When they go to court to fight for their bargaining rights, it's a whole different level of resistance that could have a real impact.
And over 121,000 federal workers fired since Trump took office. That's what the article says. No wonder the union leaders are upset. That's a huge change, and it's going to affect how the government works.
Yeah, that number is mind-blowing. It's not just those people losing their jobs, it's their families too. And it means all these government agencies might not be able to do their jobs properly, the stuff that affects all of us.
So let's recap. We have these massive hands-off protests all across the U.S. and even overseas, all kinds of people, all kinds of groups. They're worried about this idea of a billionaire takeover. about cuts to important programs, and about attacks on certain groups. And they have 3 specific things they want to see happen.
Exactly. It's a big, complicated movement with a lot of anger behind it. It looks like a lot of Americans are unhappy with the way things are going.
Now, here's something to think about. That Mahmoud Khalil situation. That's really troubling. It makes you question where the line is when it comes to free speech, especially when you're criticizing the government. What do you think?
That Khalil case is a big deal. Can the government punish you for protesting, even if you're here legally? It could change how we understand free speech in this country.
So with all these different groups, all these different concerns, how do they actually make a difference? What's the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity for a movement like this?
The tough part is staying united. They're strong because there's so many, but they could also fall apart if they can't agree on what to focus on. If Hands Off can figure that out and keep people engaged, they could really change things. The sheer number of people involved gives them power, but they need to use it wisely.
That's a really good point. This is clearly a big moment, with people worried about democracy, about their rights, about the power of the super rich. It's something we need to keep paying attention to, for sure. Thanks for being here for this deep dive.
Absolutely. It's been fascinating to break this down with you.
News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.